Hey everybody, Brian here with Work to Game Videos, and today I'd like to talk to you about Scholar and essentially the Scholar Controller Guide. As if you're new to any of my videos, this is broken down into three parts. The first part, we're going to talk about the HUD layout and various settings that'll allow me to do what I'm doing. Then in the second part, we're going to go over the all the various abilities that I've got positioned on my cross hotbar, as well as any macros that I might be using. And then in the third section, we kind of put it all together, show off some gameplay footage, and basically kind of talk about Scholar in and of itself. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with the layout and settings. So first things first, we're going to go into our HUD layout. So you can get there via the start menu, system, and then HUD layout. And this is going to allow you to position the various controls. Now, typically I end up having a very similar layout for every job that I play. But in cases like a Black Mage, I can have a specific HUD layout that I use that I can kind of position things differently. But for Scholar, I have found that I don't need anything too special or customized. But for the most part, because that I spend a lot of time as a player on any job, I live into this kind of this windowed area. If you kind of think of this as a kind of a square or a rectangle section here. And so just to kind of break it down, what I've got my progress bar and my target bar listed right here. We got my focus target bar and my enemy list over here on the side. Now, I've got this set up with hotbar 3, but really it could be any hotbar that you like, and that's how I achieve that those abilities that list are across the screen right there. I have my left W cross hotbar here, and my right, because I like to position those a little off center. And then I've got my status effects bar where I can see any Aether flow stacks that I have, any buffs that I've got on currently. Here's my cross hotbar section right here, parameter bar, and then I have a hotbar 2 in which that I kind of position a couple of emotes and things like that. So it's pretty basic. If you've seen any of my other guides, you can it's it is what this is, and this is kind of gives me a lot of information in a short span of time, so that typically my focus kind of remains on that perspective. A difference though is that obviously as a healer, I want to make sure that I'm have a constant eye on my party, and typically I'll focus target the tank, various things. But the other thing is you do have to keep aware of your party list as well. It's not a pure DPS kind of perspective. So how do I achieve what I've achieved via settings? And that's going to be under character configuration, and then we're going to go into the hotbar settings. And from a display perspective, I love the hide unassigned slots. That's how you get that those kind of floating actions. If you turn that off, you'll see that you get the little gray boxes. So that's my personal preference. You can kind of go from there. And then you can see on the display, like, okay, what hotbars are we actually displaying? So I've got hotbar 2 and 3, so 2 and 3, and I've got those turned on. And then I have 9 and 10 over here turned on as well for that perspective. And then these are various things. So display the pet hotbar and cross hotbar. I've got that turned on. I've got that turned on for anyone as well. But anyway, under sharing, here's kind of where things get a lot of fun. So on my cross hotbar, I actually have hotbar 1 through 4 set to be job specific, and and how I've kind of built this Scholar build, you'll see why. I did this for Black Mage, and I keep it for Scholar as well. And then on the 5 through 8, those are all shared, which gives me the ability to stack mounts and do various things that I don't want to have to do across all of my job, that I don't have to do each job, I can do across all. And the same thing applies for hotbar 1 through 3. They're shared, so they're not shared, sorry, they're job specific. That's how I can kind of have that always changing by the job. And then 4 through 10, with the exception of 7 and 8, which is something I've been experimenting with Black Mage. So for that, it doesn't necessarily matter in this case. Under the cross hotbar settings, I've obviously got it enabled. I've got the transparency. I'm in hold mode. You can't use the double cross hotbar if you're not in hold mode. And then I've got always display it, and then return to the cross hotbar after the W cross hotbar input. This is important. That way you don't end up getting stuck out somewhere and getting lost essentially. And then I have it set where I can position it separately, and that's where you saw in the HUD section the way that I can set this off-centered from one another. And lastly, in the settings part, we've got enable the expanded controls. So you can see hotbar 2 left and 7 right. So if you remember back from sharing, 2 left is a job specific hotbar, and then 7 right is a shared. So if I hold down right trigger, then L trigger, you can see I've got minions, I've got mounts, I've got limit break, I've got a couple of targeting macros and timer, effects, etc. So it allows me to have that across all my jobs. But then left trigger, then right trigger brings up, here's where I can summon, here's where I can do these abilities that I don't always need access to right away, but you want to have access to them, and so they're just hidden behind the left trigger and right trigger for that. And then for the W cross hotbar, I've got enabled for only 4 buttons, and then I've got it set to 3 left and 3 right. So this is where you would actually go to. I'm not going to apply that, and then you go to set those abilities as well. So you can see that they're mirrored right there because that's what these are pulling from. So those are that is my HUD layout. Those are my settings that get me to how I use the cross hotbar with the W cross hotbar as well. So next we're going to talk about the layout of the actions that I have, as well as macros that I use. So stick around. All right, so it's time that we talk about my actions on my cross hotbar. So we're going to start with the hotbar 3 actions that are there. I mainly use this for my cooldowns, but to also communicate information to me. I'm not going to be clicking on these abilities. I need to make sure I have access to these abilities whenever I'm playing. So it's not that I'm, you don't want to have to take your hands off the controller. Obviously that would be the point, but this is going to communicate. So starting from left to right, we've got Embrace, and this just communicates to me what either EOS or Celine are doing. You can click on it as well. You can use this as an ability as well if your pet is an Obey, but for the most part I have my 4 pet abilities. So Celine has Embrace, Silent Dusk, Fey Caress, and Fey Wind, and so I have those up there so I know what her cooldowns are for that regard. I've got Aether Flow, so it communicates to me very clearly when Aether Flow is ready, because it's very important that you manage actually your Aether Flow stacks more than your MP, and we'll cover that more in a bit. Swift Cast is there just so I know I can, if I need to use it for anything specific, I have it available. Bane, Eye for an Eye, Virus, and Rouse, and so those just communicate to me, hey, you have these abilities to use them. They're going to benefit you in that way. Then on the W cross hotbar, I've got Energy Drain, I've got Stay, so I've got a kind of a pet command. I've got Eye for an Eye, and I've got Miasma. Now I can easily just hit right bumper, and I'm going to get right into all my pet commands. But sometimes they can kind of get messy, and so I try to keep it simple. So I've got a couple of things that I like here as well. Then, starting on the left trigger, I've got Sacred Soil, and I have this macro, so I'll go ahead and pull that up right now. So if we could look at Sacred Soil. Is essentially I've got it where I can go ahead and place it right under the feet of wherever I want. Now this is just something I'm playing with. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for you, but you can see you can kind of macro in pet commands, in this case Fey Covenant, Fey Illumination. Now you'll notice this is for EOS, and so it wouldn't necessarily apply for Celine. So like I said, these are just little experiments and tests that I run on my own, but for the most part, you can see Sacred Soil, T, and then if I don't have a target, then it's going to allow me to place it wherever I want. So not targeted. Now I can place, but if I have it targeted, it's going to go right under my feet. So that's essentially what helps and gets me exactly what I want for that perspective. All right, so back to the macro section as well as the layout. Here I've got Indomitability. This is really nice, powerful. Spell uses Aether Flow. That's why it's important to manage that. Got Deployment Tactics, and then I've got Dissipation. And so those are kind of this wheelhouse here on the up, down, left, and right triggers. I've got Ruin 2, and this is important if I need to be moving and I want to try to throw out some damage, I can do that. And then you'll see here I've got Fey Caress and Silent Dusk. So these are 2 of my pet abilities, and in Obey I have control over those and when I want to use those. And then I've got this macro called Turn on the Pain. So if we go find it here, you'll see that it's going to put me in cleric stance. It's going to change my hotbar to 4, and then it's going to put my pet, in this case, into auto mode. Now, I'm going to say this. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're especially going to be doing end game, raiding content. It's very important that you control your pet at all times. But I find that if you're wanting to learn, if you're wanting to kind of focus in on DPS and you want your pet to kind of manage themselves, this is a good kind of practice to kind of get a good feel, a good rhythm to the job. But I'm highlighting this to say, it's up to you. But if you're going to try to be the best scholar possible, it's important that you have control of your fairy at all times. That way they don't burn a cooldown during a phase that it's not needed. So just highlighting that. You can see also when I turn off the hurt, here you go. Here's the opposite of it. If you want to be able to macro them into obey stance, you can do that. So you have the ability to macro their stances and a lot of those abilities. So please, I'll make sure I include these macros in the document link below, but I just wanted to highlight that and talk about its importance really quick. So if I turn that on, I'm going to switch to hotbar 4, which is essentially my damage hotbar, and we'll cover that in a second. But then in this case, I'm macroing them to be in kind of their auto mode. They're always going to be curing and embracing, but essentially when they're in obey, you tell them when to do these abilities. But if they're in sick mode, if they're in auto attack mode, they're going to do those abilities on their own. So then going to the right hand side, we've got emergency tactics. I lost my mouse for a second. Emergency tactics, stone skin, sucker, and leeches on the up, down, left, and right. And then I've got Fey Wind, Illustrate, Eloquium, and Physic. And so these are this is my wheelhouse of curing and damage mitigation. So this is always in the same spot. Now, if you see my White Mage guide, typically I have all my heals also located in that same kind of wheelhouse of those abilities. And I do that especially if you play more than one healer type, so that ideally you're trying to build out some muscle memory to your abilities. And then lastly, on the right hand double cross hotbar side, I've got Aether Flow, Rouse, Arrow, because I crossed that because I wasn't using one of my other Black Mage abilities. And then I've got Heal, which is going to bring my pet to me. So on the right hand side I have Heal, on the left hand side I have Stay. So that's just kind of and I have them in the same spots. Try to build that out as a part of a muscle memory perspective. So then we talked about, as I mentioned here with this macro that I've got it, hotbar, cross hotbar 4, which is my damage cross hotbar. So if we look at that, if I go ahead and use the macro, I'm going to be in cleric stance, and it's going to switch my hotbar to set 4. So on the right hand side, same, I think so. Sorry. On the right hand side, I replace a couple of my fairy abilities, and you can choose to do what you want with this. But I decided I wanted to have a couple of abilities here from a curing perspective, and I keep leeches in the same spot on both sides because leeches really isn't affected by cleric stance one way or another. And this is important because if I want to take off a debuff, and I don't need to switch stance, I can go and just take it off, and I can still be in kind of a damaging stance. And so what you'll see here is that so emergency tactics and sucker replace the pet abilities that I've macroed. You can see that now they're actually in sick mode, so these icons are grayed out, so they're not accessible. And this is to communicate also to me that they are not in obey, and it's important that they, in my opinion, that they stay in obey. But I wanted to highlight that. All right, so down here I've got Shadow Flare, and it's macroed. So let's go take a look at that. So you can see that I've got Shadow Flare. I'm macroing it with Swift Cast because I like to get those off and on the ground as quickly as possible. And then again, just like with my Sacred Soil, I've got Shadow Flare macroed with a T. That's going to place it at the foot of the target in this case. And if I don't have that set, then it's going to allow me to place it wherever I want. So it gives me that kind of extra layer of control as needed. And then I've got Bane, which is going to spread my dots to nearby enemies. I've got Broil, which is going to give a nice little good punch to the enemy. In fact, it kind of really replaces Ruin Master in this case, which is just Ruin 2 and Ruin 1 together in case I get synced and I don't have access to Ruin 2. But I like it here. And the reason is because it does have a cast time. This doesn't. So if I need to be moving then at least I'll be getting off Ruin 2s than Broils. And then, like I said, I've got leeches right there. Followed by, I've got kind of Bio 2, Miasma, and Bio. And the reason I've kind of got them structured here is that I want to try to cast Bio 2, then Miasma, then Bio, and then spread those dots around. So it kind of has this nice little arching kind of flow to how I'm using the controller as well. And so like the Ruin Master, I think it's this one, you just see it's just Ruin 2 and then Ruin. And so I know, especially I try to mention this on several of the DPS videos, but macros can be a DPS loss for you because it does have to ping the server. It can't be queued up. So just make note of that when you're choosing to use a macro over something else. Make sure that it's adding value to you as a player. I know, because you do want to try to offset that loss. It could be very minimal, but sometimes that little that little minimal can be the difference between wiping and winning. So I just wanted to highlight that. So anyway, so being able to switch stances, I think is very important, and this allows me as a DPS, as a healer, trying to be able to prioritize those options, a lot of flexibility. This does come with a trade-off. This does come with a little bit of risk. If you are too quick on your cleric stance, you might find yourself, like if I put myself into cleric stance, and if I need to get it off, I'm switching hotbars, but I'm still in, and so I can now actually be in cleric stance, and now my hotbar's in healing mode. And so if you're not paying attention, if you can mess up and you can be trying to heal while in healing mode, and you're not going to be as effective, and it could, you could be like, why are my heals not working? And it's just the fact that you might have clicked through that couple times. So take note, use caution when doing that. How you switch between your cross hotbars, especially within a pet, because if you just press it, you're going to keep jumping to the pet hotbar. You got to hold down the right bumper and then press the appropriate icon to switch you to the appropriate cross hotbar. So, and now you can see I'm in healing mode, but because my macros are messed up, now in this case, my pet is not in the appropriate obey stance. I have them in obey from my macro perspective on when I'm on healing, and then when I'm on DPS, I have them set free, and that's the whole point behind it. That I would again usher caution if you decide to use something like this. And so how you fix that is you can just right bumper, you can set them into obey, and now you can see that those icons are lit up, and that's what's important for me. That's why those icons are there more than anything else, is to communicate two things: that they're in the right stance and that their cooldowns and the timing of their cooldowns as well. So there's one last hotbar that I want to highlight, and then it's the kind of the L trigger, R trigger for these options. So you'll see that I've got protect, I've got sustain, I've got virus, and I've got sprint. Best, healers don't need TP, so run out of that bad stuff so you can stay alive. And then I've got resurrection and swift cast, so I can easily pop that together and get somebody back up. And then I've got summon 1 and summon 2 macroed. And so let me show you guys that real quick. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and call out EOS. So summoning EOS, you see that it's casting, but now all of a sudden, all of my hotbar abilities right here are different. These are EOS's abilities, and so within my summon 1 macro, I actually am setting EOS's abilities to that cross hotbar. So you can see Whispering Dawn, Fey Covenant, Illumination. And so if I actually switch back to here, you can see that I've got Fey Covenant, Fey Illumination, and Whispering Dawn also putting on the cross hotbar. So no matter what pet I have out, those abilities are changing. And again, I'm going to make sure that you have the link to the document where you can easily grab these. So it's pretty simple. Summon, and then you can see the cross hotbar, pet, Whispering Dawn, EOS, what cross hotbar, and then the positioning: RAL, LAU, LAR. So LAU and LAR are these two positions. And so then also include the link to the Square Enix's listing to where you can easily find those positions as well. Then you can see that I'm in macroing, then Embrace, Whispering Dawn, Fey Covenant, and Fey Illumination to here. And then I say go ahead and wait 6 seconds as a part of the macro, and go ahead and then make sure that they are put into the obey stance. So that way anytime I summon, they're always being summoned in obey. Same thing applies with summon 2. You can see that it's the same macro, except for that I'm switching out their abilities and putting them in the same position for the cross hotbar and the hotbar itself. This, I think, gives me a lot of flexibility and control over my pet as I'm playing my role. So a couple of options that you could easily do with this, a couple ways you could take it. You really want to control your pet. You don't want to let them go off on their own. You go in here, and then instead of having these two kind of switch out for emergency tactics and succor, or I mean, you can kind of obviously lay out your hotbars any way which you feel comfortable. You could easily just go to that macro and also put those abilities here, so that way you don't put them in a sick stance, you keep them in a bay, and you still have access to your pet abilities in this stance, and thus that would then keep this side very calm and very situated that right way. So that is my cross hotbar layout and macros section. This was a little bit longer because you do have control of the pets. You do have a lot you're trying to accomplish in this mixed role as well. So next up, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this all together, and I'm going to talk about Scholar and essentially some of the abilities over some gameplay footage from a couple of dungeons. So stick around. We'll be right back. Scholar as a healer, and depending really obviously on your party, has a lot of free time to do really whatever they wish to do. At its core, it's a damage mitigation and prevention healer, meaning that you can prevent someone from taking damage and you really don't need to heal them later. And along with your pet Eos or Celine, you can find yourself with a lot of time to put out some damage for your party. As far as their strengths and weaknesses go, you'll find that for its almost infinite pool of MP, it has one main resource to manage, and that's your Aether Flow stacks. This gives you the ability to quick heal, AoE heal, damage mitigate, and with only 3 every 60 seconds, this can go really, really quick. So it's important to keep that in mind. You do have some abilities like emergency tactics that you can trade in your shielding for extra healing if needed, but in just normal content, I haven't found too much reason or need for it. What I do find is that with Eloquium, Succor, Physic, Leeches, Stone Skin, and my Fairy, that I'm pretty much able to heal and protect my party, and then switch into DPS stance for trash pools and really anything like that. I watch my party member's life, and I make sure that it doesn't dip down too low, and with this, my Aether Flow is usually off cooldown, and so with 3 stacks ready to go, and with my Aether Flow ready to be used, I feel that I'm most ready for any situation. This really allows me to stance into kind of a light DPS role, and I kind of let my Fairy do most of the work healing and managing the little things, while at the same time I kind of keep my eye out for tank busters and the like. I think that the strength of the role comes from really controlling your pet. It's easy just to put them into kind of auto mode, and you'll see that I do that on kind of my DPS stance in the video, but I wouldn't recommend it for high level play. But being able to really combo your abilities with your pet's abilities allows you to keep your party alive. Eos is Whispering Dawn, and your Succor can really go a long way together. Both preventative curing, but also in damage mitigation. But if you don't have access to that ability, you're going to be at a disadvantage if and when it's needed. So the best advice I can give you is to practice the role. Hopefully the layout that I provided in the previous section and the macros kind of give you more control with the space that you have available with the controller, and that is really my goal. I hope this guide has actually been a help and helped to inspire you to try out a few things. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or tips. Maybe I missed something or I didn't highlight something in the video, and especially if you're a seasoned scholar and you think it's important, please let me know. I just want to make sure that you've got all the information you need. So anyway, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our guides, podcasts, and any of the content we have planned. And hit that like button if this video has been a help. And I really just want to thank you for watching. So for Work to Game videos, my name's Brian. I hope you have an awesome day. Take care.